Hey there, I am back with another deck review, and today I'm going to be looking at Hercules playing cards from playingcards.net, aka Gambler's Warehouse. This deck was designed in 2018 as part of a Kickstarter campaign by Blackout Brother. Blackout Brother's done a few other deck designs, including the recent Kickstarter Primordial playing cards, another really cool deck that I recommend checking out. I have a review of that one on my channel. Like that deck, this one was inspired by Greek and Roman mythology, and specifically the story of the labors of Hercules. It's probably the most well-known story of the Greek and Roman demigod. His Greek name was actually Hercules, and he was the son of Zeus and a mortal woman, so he was half god, half man. He was said to be the mightiest mortal alive, as in part because of his divine father. But he also, because Zeus had an affair with a mortal woman and fathered Hercules, his wife Hera was always insanely jealous of Hercules. And so one day, Hera drove Hercules mad, and in a fit of madness, he actually killed his own sons. When he did that, of course, he kind of spiraled into despair. And when he finally came out of it, he sought out the Oracle at Delphi to figure out how he could atone for what he'd done. There he was told to go serve his cousin, Eurystheus. And Eurystheus gave him, over the course of a decade, gave him these different labors to complete, all of which would test his legendary strength. So that's the story that inspired the deck. We'll look more closely at the labors themselves as we get into the cards. But let's take a look at the deck, starting with the Tux. Now, it comes in two different decks. There's the standard over here on the right. This was printed in a 5,000 deck run. And then you have the limited one over here that was limited to 2,500, so half as many of these. So let's take a look at the Tux, starting with the standard edition. The standard edition is bicycle branded, and it's done on this regular glossy finish Tux case, all black with a combination of white, gold, gray, and white ink, making out the design. So you've got the classic bicycle trusted since 1885 at the top, Hercules, the name of the deck, written at the bottom, and this sort of dark and menacing image of Hercules with the chains gripped in his hands there. Really striking image, kind of framed up a little bit on a spade pip design, and lots of little flourishes and borders all the way around and accenting everywhere. But a really dark and kind of menacing look to them there. On the sides, you've got Master Finish, designed in the USA. And on the other side, Gambler's Warehouse, Dallas, Texas. Bottom has your ad copy for Gamblers, as well as Blackout Brother and the USPCC, who printed both of these decks. And then on the top, just has some extra little detail with that red banner down the center. Back's going to be the back design of the cards. We'll look at those details in a second. And you get a custom Tux seal that features a lion's face in gold on black. That lion is actually representative of the first of the 12 laborers, but we'll look more closely at that in a second. As you open up the inner flap, you have another smaller lion's face and some additional ad copy. Bicycle decks often will add that. You have the two spade pips on the inner flaps, and you have some really beautiful inner printing as well. Just gold ink on kind of a dark, black, almost black colored tuck, but features a lion's face as well as some extra little embellishments and flourishes in this repeated pattern that goes all the way to the bottom of the tuck. So really cool interior printing and a really nice tuck, but that's just the standard tuck. They really amp it up with the limited tuck. So let's take a quick look at that one. So very similar design, but this one is not branded bicycle. The tuck itself is actually not printed by USPCC like the bicycle tuck was. This one's done in a matte blue cardstock and is covered in foil. We got multiple colors of foil with the silver, red, gold. All three colors kind of form a really beautiful design. So now instead of bicycle, there's Hercules written a very powerful font across the top, and a slightly larger image of Hercules there, all done in foil. Same menacing look, same design as before, but a little bit larger and very striking. Love the combination of the colors of foil there. So really cool. I love the pops of red going on. On the sides, you've got the same thing as before, master finish designed in the USA. Gambler's Warehouse on the other side. Have some different ad copy on the bottom. This one doesn't mention USPCC since they didn't print the tuck case, but does mention Blackout Brother and Gambler's Warehouse. And the top, I can't see it under the tuck seal, but it says Hercules, and you've got extra little embellishments on the side. Some slight embossing going on here and a couple other parts. It's not a completely embossed case, but you do get some hits of embossing going on in there. The back's going to be a foiled version of the back of the cards, and you do get a black and red this time, postage stamp style seal, also featuring, just like before, that red lion's face, and these are individually numbered to the deck's print run of 2,500. Inner flap has a slightly larger gold foiled with red accent lion's face. You get silver spade pips on the interior, and the interior printing. It's a little hard to get these cards out, but the interior printing is there as well. This time all done in red foil. You can see that red foil printing going on there. Same design as before, but just a little bit brighter and more pop with that red against the blue. And that goes again all the way to the bottom of the tuck. So that's the two tuck case, but let's take a look at the cards. Now we're gonna jump back to the standard edition. So these cards are done in black. So black cards, and starting with the back design here, you've got bits of gold, and it's not a metallic ink, but it is a gold colored ink, as well as silver, a little bit of lighter accents in there, forming this two-way back design. So lots of just flourishes. You've got little spade pips in here. You also have a pair of swords coming out of the top, and just all sorts of different designs. You've got the chains curling around the sides. You've got the cloud and the lightning bolt. I'm wondering if that's a symbol of his father Zeus, who was the god of lightning, among other things. And then lots of just beautiful gold borders going all the way around. So a lot of detail going on here. Cross forming the center here. I love the two-way back design. I really like that they finished out with the medium poker border, but it's kind of broken up, so it's not a really harsh border. A little bit more of a natural feel to it. So very nice back design. You do get a couple of jokers, similar artwork, but you get one that's kind of a darker and then one that's red. I almost call them like a gold and a red. They both feature a two-way design with Hercules looking strong with his arms crossed there in the center, has Hercules at the top of the frame there, and then Joker in the corners. So there are your two jokers. Very menacing look again. You do get a couple of gaff cards. You get one double backer and one of these sort of two-sided cards. So this is in the style of the court cards, but half of the card is the King of Hearts. The other half is the Queen of Hearts. So something a little bit interesting you can use, so I'm holding the card like this. Looks like I've got the King of Hearts and I've just changed it to the Queen of Hearts. So just depending on how you hold it. So an interesting gaff card there. Now, getting into the cards, and we'll start with the Ace of Spades. And here it is. It again features Hercules, that same pose we've seen before with the chains. He's in the middle of a large spade pit. Love the little radiant lines, almost giving it a glowing feel. And then a really aggressive border kind of framing him in, this sort of oval shaped border. Includes the name of the character Hercules there at the top, and then you have these little banners in the corner in light with the dark ace and spade pip there in the center. I think the light background really helps this to stand out, especially if you're wanting to use this deck, so keeps it a much more easily readable deck if you've got this in your hands as a deck of cards. The number cards all feature that same border that we were looking at, or a similar border to what we were looking at on the ace, but this time just simply have the pips in the center, and they are, of course, full custom pips. There's a nice close-up of them. You can see some of the detail and the flourishes that go into those. Now I'm just going to go through the numbers. I'm going to save the court cards for the end, but you'll see a little bit of a custom arrangement of the pips. And then you get into the diamonds, so all the aces are going to feature slightly larger pips. Nothing as fancy as the Ace of Spades, but you do get a slightly larger pip there in the center. And you can see the bright red pops that you get with the red cards. So through the diamond number cards, and then into the clubs. A little bit of an extra swirl there, and kind of back to that gold color. And there's the ace of clubs. And then the hearts. And here are the hearts. But that said, the real highlight of this deck is going to be in the court cards. Now, I mentioned at the outset that this was about the 12 labors of Hercules, and so the 12 different courts are going to represent each of those labors. So to look at all of those, and it starts out with the first of his labors, the Nemean lion. So the lion was said to have impenetrable golden fur. Hercules actually managed to kill him either by strangling him or shooting him in his mouth where he was vulnerable. And then ultimately he used the lion's own claws to remove the pelt and kind of wore it as a cloak or as a type of armor through a lot of his other labors. But a really beautiful design, lots of aggressive borders going on, but you have these sort of interlocking rings with the lion feature there in the center. And again, a really dark and menacing image there. You've got the chains kind of curling around the edge, but he's almost kind of leaping out of the frame. I love the kind of pupilless eyes and just how menacing that he looks there. So really cool image of the Nemean lion as the first of the labors. Moving on to the second was the 9-headed Lernaean Hydra. So you've got a few of the heads represented here, but it was actually a poisonous 9-headed beast that Hercules had to slay as his second task. He did so with the help of a companion and ultimately ended up kind of cutting off all 9 heads of the Hydra and killing it. The third one on the Jack of Spades was the capture of the Cyrenian hind. So this one wasn't about strength, but more about speed and endurance. This is said to be the fastest creature alive. And according to some versions of the tale, Hercules actually had to chase this stag around for a year. So on foot for an entire year. But you can see there a little bit of a mean look to him there as he looks right in. Love the kind of twisting horns at the top. And again, you've got the name of the character written there at the top with 3 Cyrenian hind. Going into the fourth and now jumping into the hearts, you get the Erymanthian boar. So you had to capture alive this menacing boar here. I love the look of this one. This might be my favorite one of the court cards, but I love the look of that boar. Again, kind of leaping out of the frame with those menacing tusks. And the red on the King of Hearts, those little pops of red really help this one kind of stand out a little bit more. The Queen of Hearts, this was an interesting one, the Augean stables. So this one, he didn't have to kill or capture anything. He just had to clean out these stables. The trick was, though, that there were 1,000 near immortal beasts that had lived here, and the stables hadn't been cleaned out in hundreds or thousands of years. And so there was a lot of filth there, and he had to clean them all out. And so he ended up actually rerouting some rivers in order to clear these out. So kind of a cool twist to the story there. So there's the Queen of Hearts. The Jack of Hearts is the Stymphalian. There you go, you can see it there. It says the Stymphalian birds. So these were some man-eating birds that he had to shoot and kill. You can see them there. Love the motion with the wings perched up high there. The King of Clubs now turns to his next challenge, the Cretan bull. This was the father of the famous Minotaur, the more well-known man and bull creature that was in the maze at Minos. But the Cretan bull was his father, and so was ultimately also defeated by Hercules as one of his tasks. Another really cool one. Love these where they're kind of breaking the frame and kind of leaping out there. Next, we turn to the mares of Diomedes. So these were some horses or mares that had to be captured. Again, a really almost evil look to the mares there in this two-way court. So a really cool one there. And then the Jack of Clubs, the belt of Hippolyta. Hippolyta was the queen of the Amazons. If you've watched Wonder Woman, you may have heard her name mentioned here, but he actually had to obtain her belt. And as the legend goes, at the end of it, he ended up slaying Hippolyta at the end of the story. The King of Diamonds, so this was the cattle of Geryon. Geryon was a 3-headed giant, and Hercules had to capture the cattle there. So you've got this one's actually represented as a sheep, and an evil, dark-looking sheep there. Queen of Diamonds, the golden apple. So he had to obtain these these legendary apples, and in doing so, he met with Atlas as part of this story, and so he had to capture 3 golden apples. So you got the apples represented there, and then last but not least is Cerberus. So Cerberus was the 3-headed dog that guards the underworld, and so the last of his labors, Hercules had to capture or slay Cerberus. And so in completing all of these, he actually, as part of his reward, Hercules became immortal at the end of this. But that is the story of the 12 labors of Hercules. I love the design of the quartz. I think they're really, really well done. That said, it is a little bit dark with the black background and the really minimal color set that's used on these. So I think while I'm glad they did the frame to help the numbers here in the corner stand out a little bit more, the deck themselves is a little bit dark, and really you don't appreciate just how much until you turn to the look at the standard, or at the limited edition deck, and here it is. So very similar design all the way through. We'll go through this really quickly because a lot of the same art elements, but you'll see a big change in the color scheme. So whereas the other one was a black background, this one's now done with a white background, and all those colors now, you've got more red mixed in there, and just the design really pops out quite a bit more. So I like this design a good bit better than the black cards. I think they both look nice, but this one really, really stands out. Similar design elements here, just a little bit more red used. And the same thing is going to continue through the rest of the deck. So white background helps everything pop just a little bit more. Maybe not as evil of a look to everything, but still a very menacing look to the characters throughout. I'm going to flip this over. So there's your Ace of Spades. And same look that we saw before, but just a lot, much more brightened up because of that white background. Here's the quartz. Still have that same menacing look, but that little bit of a gray background there really helps them stand out a good bit. There's your Hydra, the Nemean Lion, one of my favorites. And then into the red cards. We'll flip a little bit faster through these. And then here's the Diamond Quartz. And then into the Club Quartz. Through those number cards. And finishing out with the Heart Quartz, including a couple of my favorites, including this one over here, the Erymanthian Boar. And there are those. So it finishes out with the same couple of gaff cards that we looked at on the other one. So that's the 2 decks. As far as handling, they're both done on a similar stock with the master finish, and they handle really, really nicely. I mean, fans, cuts, everything are going to be just really beautifully done. No complaints at all about the handling. USPCC decks always handle really nicely. Between the 2 decks, I definitely like the limited one quite a bit more. I think the white background helps the design stand out, and that tuck case, just the mixture of foils on these really does it for me. So big fan of that. That said, I love the story of Hercules. I think you can't really go wrong with either one of these decks. Definitely both worth checking out. So if you get a chance, go grab one of these. I'll put a link to where you can find one of these into the description if you're interested. But that's it for this one. Hope you enjoyed this look at Hercules from playingcards.net. Let me know what other decks you want to see in the future. Subscribe for more deck reviews and unboxings, and I'll see you for the next one.